Hello and welcome to the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs War Room Update. Today's edition of the podcast is special in its nature. This is a troubling period of time of the year for Israel in general. It is the period of time between celebrating, marking the Pesach holiday, the Passover holiday, and then straight after that, Israel starts off marking national events, national holidays, both Israeli and of the Jewish people. The first event is Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Memorial Day. It comes exactly a week before Israel's Memorial Day and 8 days before Israel celebrates its Day of Independence. This is a period of time where the entire country really is looking around and contemplating what happened during the Holocaust, how we then came out of the Holocaust as a people, how we came to statehood, and how we came to really fighting for our lives as part of Israel's War of Independence. And then immediately that whole experience of moving from the sadness of the loss on Yom HaZikaron, on Memorial Day, straight into the celebrations of Independence Day. One goes into the other. The national history of mourning, on the one hand, of the Holocaust, of the worst event to really strike the Jewish people in its entire history, through to the upcoming of the nation, the creation of the State of Israel, and the continuation of the sacrifice. Within that, obviously, this year, 2024, marking Holocaust Memorial Day, and obviously Memorial Day itself and Independence Day in Israel is very, very challenging. It came along with its own complexities of what do you actually do to mark the day of the Holocaust, the genocide of 85 years ago, of 80 years ago, together with the massacre, the genocide, the intended genocide of the events of October 7th. It comes along with the understanding that as part of that genocidal act on the October 7th, Holocaust survivors, people who literally survived the Nazi onslaught on the Jewish people, were then murdered by the Hamas terrorists in and around the Gaza Strip, in their homes, in their beds. This is something which is tremendously difficult for the country, for the people to really digest. How do you put that all together? When we come to Israel's Memorial Day celebrates or marks not only the soldiers who gave their lives defending and fighting for the country, but also those civilians who were killed on the way by the terrorists as part of their onslaught on the Jewish country. As we move into Independence Day, that then brings us to that idea of these people who gave their lives for us, allow us to continue on living safely in Israel to the greatest extent possible, in the knowledge that we continuously need to fight for our lives against our hostile enemies. As we talk, IDF forces, soldiers, security forces are fighting in the south in Gaza, in the north with Lebanon. Today, we're going to try and bring all of those things together and talk to a tremendously special guest. We're going to be speaking to Iris Haim. Iris is the mother of Yotam Haim. Yotam was a 27-year-old who was kidnapped in Kfar Aza on the 7th of October by the terrorists, by the genocidal terrorists. Videos that were released at the time showed Yotam being led by the terrorists, put into a car, and then driven off into Gaza. The story of Yotam could have been one of those events that really define the euphoria of Israel's prowess as a military. But the opposite was unfortunately the truth. On the 15th of December 2015, IDF forces operating in Sajaiya, in one of the camps in the northern area of the Gaza Strip thought they saw 3 terrorists coming out of a destroyed house. There'd been information that had been there before that possibly in general area, there are survivors, there are hostages, but it wasn't clear what was going on. The forces mistook Yotam and Samer el-Takalka and Alon Shimri's, 3 of the hostages, as terrorists. And unfortunately, Yotam and his 2 friends were killed by friendly fire. This is the story of Yotam that we will try and bring you today. This is the story of the civilians, of the soldiers who have lost their lives since October 7th. We've seen 612 soldiers being killed since then, a number that's going up, unfortunately, all the time. Many of them were killed on the day of the onslaught itself. Hundreds killed in Gaza since the start of the ground operations. 849 civilians were murdered, including 69 foreigners from countries like Thailand, Nepal, the Philippines, India, America, England, from all over. The terrorists didn't really care who they were coming to murder. Their goal was genocidal in nature, and their victims were all, from their point of view, Jews. They didn't ask their nationalities and didn't care. On Remembrance Day, we're going to mark 24,000 people who have been killed defending the country or by terrorists, 20,000 soldiers and 4,000 victims of terror. Of them, 2,500 have been killed since 1950, most of them killed since the start of the Oslo Accords in 1993. Iris, who is now joining us, brings that whole connection of all of that story together. Really the tragic story of Yotam, and how Iris has turned that event into something which amazingly is seen as something of one of those people who gives light and hope to the Jewish people in our darkest hour. Iris, as it was made public yesterday, is going to be one of the people who will light the lights, the memorial lights, the celebration lights on Israel's Independence Day, an honor given to very few people in the country every single year. And Iris is one of those people who has been chosen because she is a beacon of light in that sea of darkness. Iris, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Maurice.
Hi, Iris. Maybe we can start, really again, thank you for joining us. Maybe we can start, tell us a little bit about Yotam, just the idea of that every name has a face and every face has a history and an entire world, as the Gemara says, an entire world around each person. Tell us a little bit about Yotam.
Yotam, my son, is my second son. He was 28 when he was kidnapped. He was a musician. He was a drummer in a heavy metal band. He had red hair, and he was very funny. He had a lot of humor. He used to laugh a lot and used to make me laugh. He was also a sportician, a very good sportician. He had a lot of tattoos on his body. He liked animals. He was very sensitive. His soul was very sensitive. He had a complicated soul. He suffered from depression, but he dealt with that. He worked, and he had a full life. From one side, like I said, he was very smart and funny. He wanted to be a famous drummer. He loved heavy metal music, and he played music with his band. He had a band. He was very, like I said, very complicated. He was full of life, but from one side, but from the other side, the life was not easy for Yotam. He lived in kibbutz Kfar Aza, kibbutz that is very near the fence of Gaza. And in that day of the 7th of October, he intended to go to play the music play music with his band in Tel Aviv.
Tell us a little bit. How did Yotam get to Kfar Aza? What was the story behind that? You don't live in Kfar Aza.
My family, me, my husband, and our 3 children, Tuval, Yotam, and Noya, we used to live in Kibbutz Gvulot in the Negev, in the Western Negev. We left the kibbutz and went to live in a moshav near also Moshav Sde Nitzan. And when Yotam was around 25, he, like everybody, wanted to be independent, to live alone. So he rented a little apartment near Sde Nitzan. It's 20 minutes between Kfar Aza and Sde Nitzan. He wanted to stay near us. He worked also in the area in Kibbutz Re'im. He was a farmer also. So it was comfortable for him to be separated, but not far away, not too far from us. He liked the atmosphere of the kibbutz, so he rented this apartment in Kibbutz Kfar Aza.
Tell us a little bit, Iris, if I can ask without being too harsh, a little bit about of the feelings of what happens on the 7th of October, what happened through the story of seeing the first videos and realizing that, albeit Yotam's been kidnapped, but at least he's alive, and you see the pictures. That must have been an unbelievable period of time.
In the 7th of October, we didn't know that Yotam was kidnapped. We knew that Yotam was kidnapped after 3.5 weeks. So in the beginning, when Yotam disappeared, he was called, there were people, many people. In that day, there were 3,000, and I think, and 400 people that they were like disconnected. There was no contact with them. Slowly, the army and everybody, they start to find the bodies. So from 3,400, it was like less and less. And then there were 240 people that were considered to be kidnapped. We knew about Yotam just, like I said, 3.5 weeks. In the beginning, they told us that they located his telephone, his iPhone in Gaza that day at 12 o'clock in the noon. So for 3.5 weeks, we didn't know nothing. We just needed to think and to invent we didn't have information. So we didn't know nothing. So when I didn't knew nothing, I decided to invent what I want to believe. I said that Yotam, if he is kidnapped, I wanted to believe that he's surviving, he's strong, he was a strong person, and that I believe in his powers, I believe in Israel's powers to bring him back. And that what was the state of mind of me and my family for all this period of time. Slowly, we got some information. After 3.5 weeks, we knew that he is alive and was kidnapped. Of course, we were happy. It doesn't make a sense that I felt happy when they told me that Yotam was kidnapped, but the other option is a body. So for me, to know that Yotam is alive somewhere is better than dead.
But at the time when you got the information, you knew that he had been kidnapped alive. Did you know that he was alive also? Was the information that he was actually alive in Gaza, or was that something that you found out only later on?
We knew everything that we knew just later on. The fact that he was kidnapped alive, we knew it after 3.5 weeks, and after around 60 days, 58 days, we got information that he is okay, that he's alive, he's surviving, he's okay, he is with a very high spirit, he's drumming on the floor, and he's with Alon Shimriz and Samer Talalka together. The information came from one of the hostages that was together with him for 51 days. Vichiani is a Thai person. He was a worker, a worker from Thailand that was together with them for 51 days. And he brought this information. This information gave us a lot of hope. It was in the middle of December, before Hanukkah. We got information that he is okay, that Yotam is okay, and that the intelligence know exactly where he is. And it was Hanukkah, so we prayed for a miracle, that Yotam will come back. I believed in that with all my beliefs.
And you go through that whole experience of, walk us through a little bit, if I may ask, to the discussions for and the negotiations to release the hostages, and then you have some hostages coming home and others not staying. Bless you. And how does that feel? There are so many families in a similar position where, on the one hand, and the families that I've spoken to, some that we're close to, you're elated for the other families whose loved ones are being released, but on the other hand, you would also like to see, obviously, Yotam coming home at the same time. How do you even deal with that?
When there was the deal and people came back, I was in Australia, and I was together with one of the girls there. She's a sister from Kibbutz Be'eri, and her brother was released in this deal. And I was happy for her, but I was also jealous. And I hoped with all my heart that this deal will be one of other deals, and Yotam will also come back soon. I believe that he will survive and he will come back soon. It was not easy, but I trusted like I said, I put all my trust on Israel, on the government, on the army, that they know what they are doing. And because I trusted so much, it was easier for me. I didn't feel that I want to shout in the streets or demonstrate. I didn't feel that I need to do it. We had a lot of conversations with the army, with the intelligence, and we trusted them.
Tell me a little bit about that experience of the connection with the government, with the army, and the families of the hostages. There was a lot of criticism at the beginning. I know, for whatever reason, personally, that there was a great difficulty in Israel to deal with this new situation. Israel had been very accustomed, unfortunately, because of the circumstances, to dealing with soldiers who had been kidnapped. It was a completely new experience to deal with now, suddenly, with civilians who had been kidnapped. The entire system wasn't yet built for that. It wasn't geared up for that. There was no one who could even take control and say, well, this is my subject. This is in the confines of my ministry, looking at the government ministers. How did that work, Iris? What was your experience of? I know there's the whole directorate set up under the not the control, the guiding force of Brigadier General in the reserves, Gal Hirsch, and the people working with him. What was that experience like? What support did you receive? Legal support, moral support, psychological support. I would assume as well. I would assume that I would be pulling out the last few hairs that I even have.
So yes, as you said, we got after 1 week, the Israeli country organized everything. We started to get everything: money, psychological assistance, spiritual assistance. There were two officers that were in like private contact with us. They were our supporters from Gal Hirsch, from the army. We got everything. This was not a problem. I think the main problem that you talked about, it was that Israel was not ready for such a thing. Not the amount of the kidnapped people, not the situation, not the easy way that the Hamas came to the houses in Kfar Aza, near Oz, Be'eri. So it was a shock. It was a shock to everybody. And most of the people in Israel was really, it's very complicated because from one point, everybody wake up in Shabbat, in Saturday morning, and immediately arrange themselves to fight, to come, to help the South. I was in the South, so I was in a shelter. But in the 8th of October, I saw everything. I saw how how we are as a nation, as a society, the Israelis, how strong we are. That even that it's happened to us, we are not losing the control. We are fighting back. And you talked about the Holocaust, and I think it was a reminder to something that can happen, but it will not happen because Israel have a very, very strong army, and we have a country. So we are not in the Holocaust. But the first thing that automatically people felt, they felt anger because it's happened. And when I started to talk, and when, for me, I'm a nurse, and I told today to somebody, I talked to a doctor, and I said that even the best doctor in the world the best surgeon, the best surgeon can open the stomach and find something that he was not ready for, a surprise. It's natural. I think that there's no such a thing that things in the world can be completely, we can be sure that they are perfect. There's no perfect. So we found what is wrong with us. We didn't expect this invasion of the terrorists. We didn't expect kidnapping. As you say, we were not ready for this.
So we're talking about, again, just going back to the 7th of October. I apologize if I'm talking. If it's too traumatic, then obviously feel free to say, Maurice, just move on. The 7th of October, the massacre has started. You're in Stei Nitzan. Stei Nitzan is part of that Gaza envelope. It's part of. It's very close to Miftachim. Possibly some of our viewers will remember that there was a video released of one of the Hamas terrorists, of one of the Gazan terrorists, they're not all from Hamas, who phoned his parents and saying, I'm in Miftachim, I've just killed 10 Jews, your son, and his parents were so proud. In the meantime, you're sitting a few kilometers away in bomb shelters. Those few hours, that day, that 24 hours, 48 hours must have been completely harrowing.
I was not in Stei Nitzan. I was living in Kibbutz Or Haner. Kibbutz Or Haner is near Sderot. Raviv, my husband, was in Stei Nitzan. He didn't see these videos. We didn't see these things. We watched television, but most of the time we were very worried about Yotam. So we mostly was in contact with Yotam. We didn't sit and watch. We didn't see Telegram. We didn't look for terrible things. But yes, it was very, very, very frightening for me in Or Haner. Or Haner is very, very near Gaza. So I had a lot of bombs. But what mostly, like I said, most of the time I was worried because of Yotam, not because of us. We were not worried about ourselves. We were worried because Yotam was in danger. And this time, 4 hours, that Yotam contact us and send us text messages and voice messages, a lot of, like you said, videos from this morning. We were busy to find how we can try to help Yotam. Raviv, my husband, wanted to go from Sde Nitzan to help, but there was no option to go out of Sde Nitzan. So we were really mostly, or not afraid, mostly worried because of Yotam.
And then along comes the 15th of December. Walk us through a little bit, if I can ask, through the events of that day, to the best of your knowledge, what happened there. There was a whole investigation by the IDF as to exactly what happened, explaining the complexities of the situation. Can you tell us a little bit from your side that what you understood was going on when you heard about the fact that Yotam had been killed by IDF soldiers, and how you were feeling?
In the 15th of December, we didn't know all the details. We knew just the fact that Yotam was killed by IDF while he was running, escaping Hamas captivity, and was by mistake identified as a terrorist. And Yotam, like I said, he was with the red hair, blue eyes. His body was very, very white. He had a lot of tattoos. So it was very strange for us when they told us that he was recognized as a terrorist. We couldn't understand. In that day, what I knew, we knew it 2 weeks after. Yotam, Alon, and Samer, they were together in a tunnel. First tunnel for 42 days. They were together in one tunnel. And then afterwards, and from then for 23 days, they were in another tunnel that were very, very, there was no air, not enough air to breathe there. So what we know that in the 10th of December, Golani units discover bombs and other weapons in a place, and they needed to go to clear this house. And for doing this, they needed to go through a building. And in this building, they sent a dog with a camera. And this dog was shot. He was shot by the terrorists that were in this building. The army, the Golani unit came in, they shoot the terrorists, but they didn't know that Yotam, Samer, and Alon are there. The fact is that these terrorists took Yotam, Samer, and Alon like a shield, a human shield, and took them out of the tunnel to the building. And then they stayed alone for 5 days. In these 5 days, they tried to reach the army. They hide in houses in Sajaiya. They found a shelter. They found food. And they left some signs for the army. The very famous sign is 3 hostages help. And they did it with paprika and pepper. It's amazing because for 5 days they succeed to run away from the Hamas and also from Israel. It's not easy. It's a place full with terrorists. And in the last day, in the 15th of December, they reach Battalion 17, and they thought that they are terrorists. In that time, every day, there were things the Hamas did, actions. They did action for hurting Israel, hurting the army. They sent old people, grandfathers with bombs, children, women. They had all on them bombs, and they were exploding when they're reaching the army. So the order was to shoot everybody that they see because there's just terrorists there. and it's very dangerous. So they killed Yotam. Summer and Alon first. Alon and Summer were killed. Yotam ran away. He succeeded to escape. They already recognize him that he is not a terrorist. And the officer said, stop fire. Stop the fire. But not everybody heard this command. And one of the soldiers that didn't see well and didn't hear the command, he shoot him.
From what I read of the army investigation, that was really the situation. You're in a battle-like situation. For the benefit of our audience, we're talking about Sajaiya. We're talking about one of the camps in the northern area of the Gaza Strip. There'd been intense fighting there for an extended period of time. Hamas was held up all the way through. Probably 98 to 99% of the civilian population, that's the estimates that I've seen and read, had already been evacuated from the camp. The people who were left in the understanding of the IDF were the terrorists, the people who were willingly there to support the terrorists. And there have been a number of occasions where, as Iris described, the civilians who were there had been forced by the terrorists to act as decoys. There were certain signs that also accompanied the booby-trapped areas, covering the bombs, the IEDs that they'd created with a blue plastic drums, which were part of that whole idea. And it wasn't necessarily entirely foreign for everybody to see that there was also Hebrew writing. This was also something which had been used by the terrorists as a decoy in order to bring the idea, to draw the IDF soldiers in. On the day of the massacre itself, there were terrorists who walked around with Israelis and with their own Hebrew. These were people who had come into Israel, people who worked in Israel, people who spoke Hebrew, saying to the people in the safe rooms, you can come out, it's safe with the army, and then they murdered them. So this whole entire situation, and then you have the battle going on, tanks firing, and a soldier who doesn't necessarily hear the entire picture, doesn't hear the order. Have you met with that soldier, Iris?
Yes, we invited after in our Shiva, we sent a message to the army. And in that message, I said that we are not angry, we are not blaming nobody. We know that this was, in that time, the things that maybe should have happened, but it's very sad to say it, but I said it. And we invited them to come to our house. We wanted to see them and to tell them. It was very important for us, for me, to tell these soldiers, young soldiers, very young, they're between 19 to 20 years old, to come, and they came to our Shiva. Four soldiers. I don't know exactly who shoot Yotam. I didn't want to know. And we hugged them, and we said that this is a war, and in the war, people are getting killed. We are not angry. We are happy that Yotam was not killed by Hamas, that he was not murdered. He was going out of this world as a free person, not as a hostage. And it gave us a lot of comfort. I think for them, it's helped them a lot, this meeting, the way that we are
Responding.
approaching this.
Since then, Iris, I've literally been following you around the country, as it were, via the media, via your appearances, and in the talks that you're giving about the situation, about the experience, about Yotam, and really that moving forward, and how do we now keep on going, even in this really very bleak situation? How do you keep positive? How do you keep optimistic? How do you see the future as something that we can still develop and go into your matzmut and light the avuka and light the flame? This period of time, I can only imagine, must be really even more difficult than the regular days when it's just hard.
I think I understood a lot of things since the 7th of October. First, I understood that this is part of the history of Israel, of the Jewish people, because we are going on and on with such stories that we are getting killed and murdered here or in Europe or in now it's in there, but it's the same. It's always the same. We need to be strong. We continue. I know that we are a very strong nation. We see it. We see it now in say these days, but these days we are showing ourselves how much we are strong. I heard some people from 1948 that they are talking about this generation, that this generation of the soldiers, they are so strong and they can fight and protect. I have a lot of belief that as we could continue every year and year before, we will continue also now. I see how much, like I said, we have a very good people here, very clever, very strong. We have money. We have the army. I have a lot of beliefs in Israel. And I will tell you myself as a private person, first of all, to be part of something is give me also a lot of power because I'm not alone. This is not my private story. This is Israel's story. Yotam was like a child of everybody. Everybody knew him. People knew me already. And I feel that we have a mission here. I have a mission to continue talking about our strengths. People need this voice. We cannot be victims of the situation, and I can see it. I can see that we are not victims. I'm not talking in a victimal way. I'm not telling nobody that I feel that somebody humiliated me or that Yotam is a victim of the army. My language is very strong. I'm talking about freedom, about choosing, about a way, a path to the future. And I think this make me feel strong and can continue.
This is one of the amazing things. In my previous positions, I was a prosecutor in the army. And I do a lot of work with the victims of terror in all different environments. And one of the things that you see is this amazing strength that comes from the people who have suffered the loss. They're called victims of terror because the act happened to them. But it's people who don't see themselves as you just described. We don't see themselves as victims. They see themselves as moving forward, taking that terrible event that happened and putting it and using it to develop something which is entirely positive, never once forgetting the loss, but then not getting into that position of never-ending depression of, well, it's all on me, it's all about me. There's a wider picture which really does give us simple Israelis so much a strength to look on and see how people can be what they say they call in Hebrew the magash shel kesef. This is the silver tray. These are the people to whom we owe our existence here, our ability to live and prosper and to raise families here. These are the people who really show us what is important in life and really what isn't important in that wider scale of things. Tell us a little bit about the moment where how did you get to the Yom Ha'atzmaut, the Independence Day ceremony and lighting the flame? When you stand there and say Letiferet Medinat Israel, in that circumstance, I'm sure it's going to be a tremendously emotional event.
Amazing event, very emotional, because I feel more than ever than I have באמת לתפארת מדינת ישראל. I born here, my parents born here, my grandparents came from Romania in 1934, and they built this country for, we are a very young country, we don't know everything, we have a lot to learn, and but this is amazing country that was built 76 years ago, and like I said, we are all, I myself, I'm a citizen here, I have a lot of אחריות, responsibility. I feel that I have a responsibility for the future of Israel. So I'm proud to be one of the people that are lighting this flame, and I'm proud in my country, in my people, in the Israeli society. I love the people here, and I know that this Yom Ha'atzmaut, it will be difficult to a lot of people. For me, it's also difficult, but it's difficult in a way that I'm sad about my son, but I'm happy that I have a country. I think we must celebrate the Yom Ha'atzmaut, because we must remind everybody, not just us, but also all the world, that Israel is a very strong country, and we will never give up. That is the meaning for me for Yom Ha'atzmaut. We will not go back to Europe in 1933.
That is exactly what I think the national ethos that we're talking about at the moment all the time. How this year do we really celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, our Independence Day, when we're involved in a war, we're being attacked from the south, from the north, from the Houthis across the sea. The Iranians are firing ballistic missiles and everything at us, and here we are. We want to stop for a day and celebrate our independence, because the alternative is that we go back to the gas chambers of Europe. We have to fight. If we stop fighting, what was Golda Meir's famous quote? If the Arabs put down their weapons, there'll be peace. If the Jews put down their weapons, they'll be murdered. That is our unfortunate reality, and we need to celebrate the fact that from the ashes of the Holocaust, from the ashes of Europe, we rose up, we created a country which is a leader in technology, a leader in water desalination, the amazing things that this country has done in such a short amount of time, and developed into a society that cares about, that truly does care about its citizens of all colors, shapes, sizes, and religions, and something that we can really be proud of.
I can say that even in Purim and in Pesach, people said that maybe it's not good to celebrate, and then I said, and I'm saying it also now, the fact that we are mentioning Yom Ha'atzmaut and Pesach and Purim, we are mentioning and the memory that we had a past. We don't want to go to this past. We want to continue and to remember that we are fighting. This is the memory of always to fight. Purim, Pesach. Yes, so we must continue to remember.
If we don't remember our history and where we came from and what brought us to that level of peoplehood, then certainly we'll never be able to understand where we're going, what our national goals are, what our national destiny is. It's something which really, this whole period of time is really a storm of emotions, from biblical times through Purim, more recent times, through the Holocaust, through terrorism, through wars, and then suddenly the day when we all stop and celebrate the fact that we're here, charging our batteries for another year going forward. Iris, I know for me, what I generally do with these programs is I try to end with one positive note going forward. You've given us so much positivity all the way through, but nonetheless, one positive message, Seidal Derech, as something that we can take with us to charge our batteries for the next year.
I have this necklace that I always wear. There is written on her, it's written in Hebrew, זה להאמין, לראות שטוב, to believe and to see the good. And behind it, Yotam Haim in the heart. So this necklace is on me since the 7th of October. And I said that from the 7th of October, we had a lot of darkness on our life. And if we will not believe first that there is good, we will not see the good, because it's very hard to see now in this condition. Like you said, although we have attacks from all kinds of places, there are a lot of anti-Semitism. We are separated between us. We are not fully agree on everything, but we must believe first that we are good. We are good people. We are good society, that we can continue, and then we will see it. To see the good now, it's an active thing to do. It's an active thing. It's not easy to see it. It's not automatic yet. We need to believe first. It's like Zelda used to say, Zelda, the poem. She used to say, even in the darkest night, you need to remember that the sun is there, and she will continue to rise.
Iris, thank you so much for taking time to join us. I know that your schedule is crazy between work and Yom HaZikaron and everything else that's going on. Thank you for being you. As the traditional Hebrew saying goes, "Amakom yinachem otchem betoch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim shelo tosifu dava od." That you should just find comfort in the fact that Yotam was there, that he enjoyed his life as short as it was, and that now he is this ready, together with yourself, is this beacon of hope for all of us, that even from the darkness, light can shine out. Thank you for being such a great beacon of light for all of us. And I hope these next few days and the months and the years coming up will make that remembrance a little bit easier. Iris, thank you.
Thank you so much. Chag Sameach.